My name is Olivia Hart, I'm 35 years old, and before I take you into the full story, I need you to sit tight, breathe in, and prepare yourself, because what happened at that Thanksgiving table still plays in my mind like a movie I never asked to watch. Let me start from the highest peak, the moment everything broke open. It was Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house in Virginia. The whole family was there. Mom, Dad, my older sister Emily, her new husband Mark, my cousins, aunties, uncles. Everyone acting like the world was perfect. We were passing the mashed potatoes around when Mom suddenly laughed and said loudly, "Sister's wedding was great. Now when's yours?" Everyone chuckled. Everyone except me. I looked up, forcing a smile. "I had mine," I said quietly. Then I added, "You got invitations." The laughter stopped. Dead silence. Forks froze. Chairs went stiff. I heard someone cough under their breath. Dad frowned. "We never got them, Olivia." I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't defend myself. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out printed delivery receipts. Every invitation sent to my parents' house. Signed for. I placed them on the table one by one. The signatures were all the same. Mom's face drained of color. Dad pushed his glasses up, staring at the papers. Emily's shoulders stiffened. The entire room felt like it was holding one giant breath. And then Dad whispered, These were signed for. But not by us." My hands didn't shake, but my heart did. I looked straight at the person I'd been suspecting for months. "Now," I whispered, "I know who did." Before I could say the name, someone in the room gasped so loudly the whole table jumped. And that, right there, is where everything exploded. But let's pause the big moment because you need to know how we even got here. You need to understand me, my family, and why kindness can sometimes be mistaken for weakness. And how empathy can carry you through storms you didn't see coming. And before we continue, tell me, where are you watching from? Are you in the US? Canada? I always love knowing where my listeners join me from because this story, well, it travels. Now let me take you back. My name is Olivia, like I said, 35, a social worker who loves helping families fix their problems, even when I can barely fix mine. I believe in kindness, truly. I believe in giving people chances. I believe in showing love even when life makes it hard. My parents. My mom, Caroline, is the queen of pretending everything is fine. If the house was burning, she'd still offer guests apple pie. She means well, but she's always been obsessed with appearances. My dad, Robert, is gentle, quiet, and careful with his words. He doesn't like conflict. He avoids it like it's a storm he can't survive. Then there's my sister, Emily. The shining star. The golden girl. The daughter who could do no wrong growing up. She married a man named Mark. Nice enough on the outside, but with a smile that always feels just a little too tight. And then there's me. Olivia, the one who works too hard, gives too much, and asks for too little. The strong one. The independent one. The one no one checks up on because, "You always seem fine." Except I wasn't fine. Because when I got married 4 months earlier, my family wasn't there. Not one of them. I remember standing at the back of the small chapel in Colorado, holding my bouquet, staring at the empty rows. Not a single family member sitting in the seats that were supposed to be filled by people who said they loved me. At first I thought something terrible had happened. Car accident. An emergency. A misunderstanding. But everyone who was supposed to be there, my parents, my sister, my aunts, never showed. And none of them called. Not one. It broke something inside me I still can't fully explain. But I didn't cry that day. I married the man I loved, Ethan. Kind, thoughtful, patient Ethan. He held my shaking hands when the music played and whispered, "You're not alone. I'm right here." But a part of me still wondered, why didn't they come? Did they forget? Did they not want to? Weeks passed after the wedding. No explanations. No apologies. No mention of the invitations. Until Thanksgiving. I arrived early that day, telling myself I wouldn't make assumptions. Maybe the invites got lost. Maybe the mail failed. Maybe it wasn't personal. But deep down my heart kept asking, what kind of family misses their daughter's wedding? When I walked in, Mom hugged me tight, acting like nothing was wrong. Emily showed off her new wedding pictures, shining them in everyone's faces. I tried to smile, tried to be normal, tried not to feel the sting inside me. And then came the moment that changed everything. Mom's loud question. My quiet answer. The receipts. The signatures. Now, before the chaos of that exact moment fully hits you, let me guide you through the path that led to this Thanksgiving table. Growing up, I was always the one who smoothed things over. If Emily cried, I was the one who held her. If Mom and Dad argued, I was the one who talked them down. I learned early how to be kind, how to understand people's pain, how to listen when others couldn't speak. But sometimes being the strong one means people forget you need support too. The day I got married, I stood alone. No father to walk me down the aisle. No mother fixing my veil. No sister holding my bouquet. But I told myself, people make mistakes. Families mess up. Maybe they never received the invitations. That's why I printed the delivery receipts. Just in case they needed proof. Just in case we could talk about it like adults. Just in case we could heal. But healing became harder when I saw one detail. One signature repeated over and over. Someone signed for every invitation sent to my parents' address. Someone who lived in the house. Someone who had access to their mail. I kept that secret for months. I waited for the right moment to ask. I waited for Thanksgiving, thinking it would be peaceful, full of love, full of family energy. But when Mom asked that question, when's your wedding? Something inside me finally cracked. That's why I told the truth. That's why the table fell silent. That's why the tension grew so thick it felt like the walls themselves were listening. Because now everyone knew something was wrong. Dad kept reading the receipts. Mom kept blinking like she needed the truth to rearrange itself. Emily's face grew tighter and tighter. And then, just as I started to speak again, someone at the table dropped their glass so hard it shattered on the floor. Everyone turned. Everyone stared. And what happened next was the beginning of the storm that changed everything. But before we go there, let me take you through one less extreme moment that happened earlier that same Thanksgiving morning. Because stories need highs and lows, and kindness is often found in the quiet spaces between storms. When I was driving to my parents' house, I stopped at a small gas station. A teenage boy, maybe 16, was struggling to help an older woman carry her groceries. No one else stopped to help them, even though it was clear they needed assistance. I parked my car, stepped out and said, "Let me help you with those." The old woman smiled. The teenager looked relieved. We loaded the groceries together. She placed her hand on mine and whispered, "You never know when kindness comes back to you." I didn't understand her words then. But after Thanksgiving dinner, her sentence would echo through my mind again and again. Because kindness always comes back. But so does the truth. And at that table, the truth was about to come out faster than anyone was ready for. The chapter ends here, with a glass shattering, heads turning, and everyone frozen as the tension rose higher than it had all night. The glass didn't just fall, it exploded on the hardwood floor, sharp pieces scattering under the table and across everyone's shoes. For a second no one breathed. No one moved. It felt like the whole room froze in place, as if someone had pressed pause on life itself. Emily was the one who dropped the glass. My perfect sister. The one who always had her hair in perfect curls, always used her perfect voice, always walked like she was floating instead of stepping. She stood beside her chair, her lips trembling, her fingers pale from gripping the table too tightly. Her husband Mark reached out to touch her arm, but she jerked away from him. And that's when Dad looked directly at her. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was just tired. "Emily," he said, "do you know anything about these signatures?" Her breath hitched. Her eyes widened. Tears welled up so fast it was like watching a storm form out of thin air. But before she could say a word, Mom suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Everyone sit, Mom said sharply. Except her voice wasn't sharp. It was scared. But she didn't get to finish her sentence. Because right then, the front door swung open so hard it hit the wall. Everyone jumped. Even Dad flinched. And there in the doorway stood my cousin Jenna, holding her phone tightly in her hand, panting like she'd just run from the driveway to the dining room without stopping. Her face was pale. Her voice shook. "Olivia," she said, staring at me. "You need to see this. Right now." Another extreme moment. Another turn. Another shock no one was ready for. But before I tell you what she showed me, let me take you back. Not far, just a bit. Because stories need breath, and you need to understand one quiet moment from earlier that day. Something soft and simple that hid inside the chaos. That morning, before heading to Thanksgiving dinner, I sat on the living room couch in the home I share with my husband, Ethan. The sunlight was warm against my face, and for a second everything felt peaceful. Ethan brought me a cup of hot chocolate. Extra marshmallows, just the way I liked it. He sat beside me and said softly, "Whatever happens today, remember you're not alone." I rested my head on his shoulder. But what if they really didn't get the invitations? Yes. What if I've been wrong all this time? Ethan kissed the side of my head. Then we talk it out. But if someone hid them? He paused. Then it wasn't your fault. Don't carry blame that doesn't belong to you. His kindness wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket. That moment mattered. Because later, when things got worse, much worse, those words gave me strength I didn't know I had. Back to the dining room. The room was filled with tension so thick you could feel it in the air. Every eye moved from Jenna to me. She slowly walked toward the table, then stopped right beside my chair. She handed me her phone. "Look," she whispered. On the screen was a video posted only minutes earlier. And it was about me. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. Mom's voice was shaky. "What is that?" But I didn't answer. Couldn't. Not yet. Because the video that was about to blow this Thanksgiving apart, was recorded inside my parents' house. And the person in the video. But no. I can't reveal that yet. Not here. Not yet. Because the suspense matters. And the truth must unfold the right way. Everyone waited. Everyone stared. Everyone leaned forward as if pulled by invisible strings. I swallowed hard. Press play. The video began. But before I describe what was in it, let's step back into something lighter for a moment. Something small, something that shows why this story is more than secrets and broken trust. Life is made of tiny moments too, and sometimes those moments shine even when everything else feels dark. When Ethan and I first got married, he surprised me with something simple, something sweet. He planted a small tree in our backyard, a young maple tree. He said, "This is for us. Every year, no matter what happens, this will grow. Even when life gets messy." I didn't know then how much I'd cling to that promise. And on the morning of Thanksgiving, before I left the house, I looked at that little tree. Its leaves had turned bright red for the fall, glowing like tiny flames in the sun. It reminded me that even when people hurt you, something beautiful can still grow. I needed that memory. Because what I saw in Jenna's video felt like the ground falling right from under me. As the video played, the room around me disappeared. I could barely hear my family's voices, just the pounding of my own heart. But right before the video reached the part that would answer everything, right before it exposed the truth I had been afraid of, the screen froze. Jenna gasped. Mom covered her mouth. Emily stepped back and hit the wall. And then, the lights in the dining room flickered violently. A loud pop echoed from somewhere in the house. And the entire room went dark. People screamed. Chairs crashed. Someone grabbed my arm. I heard Dad shout, "Nobody move." Another extreme event. Another twist. Another storm rolling in. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had gone blind. The room plunged into darkness. Heavy, sudden, almost alive. People shouted, chairs scraped. Someone bumped into the table so hard the dishes rattled. I could hear deep breaths, fast footsteps, and the sharp crackle of something electrical humming from the hallway. My heart pounded like a drum inside my chest. In that darkness, someone grabbed my arm. Their fingers wrapped tight enough to make me jump. "Olivia, it's me," Dad whispered. "Don't panic. Just stay still." His hand trembled. Dad never trembled. Mom's shaky voice echoed across the room. "Robert, what happened? Why are the lights?" Dad didn't answer her. He didn't answer anyone. Because before he could, a second sound ripped through the house. A loud banging noise from upstairs. Not footsteps. Not something falling. Something deliberate. Oom, oom, oom. Each slam sent waves through the silent darkness. Someone in the room gasped. Someone else whispered, "What was that?" Emily whimpered in the corner. But I didn't move. Dad didn't either. We both listened. And then, just as the banging stopped, the dining room lights flickered once. And blinked back on. The entire room looked like a crime scene. Chairs were knocked over. Glasses rolled on the floor. Food smeared across the tablecloth. People clung to one another, wide-eyed and terrified. Emily was standing pressed against the wall, both hands over her mouth, her mascara running down her face. Mark hovered near her, confused and annoyed all at once, like he wasn't sure if he should comfort her or blame someone. Jenna stood frozen next to me, still holding her phone, but the screen was black, dead. And then there was Mom. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the back of her chair. Something in her face had shifted, something small but important. Fear mixed with guilt. She knew something. She was hiding something. I could see it now more clearly than before. Dad turned toward the stairs. "I'll check what that noise was," he said, trying to sound calm. But his voice wavered. "No," Mom snapped, grabbing his arm so fast the whole room flinched. "We don't need to go up there." Dad looked at her. Really looked at her. "Caroline," he said softly. "What aren't you telling me?" Her breath caught in her throat. The room froze again. Not from darkness this time, but from the truth hanging above our heads like a storm waiting to break. But before Mom could speak, before Dad could take a single step toward the stairs, before anyone could think, my phone buzzed loudly on the table. Everyone jumped. I looked down. It was a text message. From an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Check the video." My stomach tightened. I reached for Jenna's phone again, but it still wouldn't turn on. And then I remembered. I had airdropped the video to myself seconds before the lights went out. I opened my photos. There it was. The video that had been recorded inside my parents' house. The one that someone didn't want seen so quickly. Tap play. Everyone went silent. The video started with someone holding a stack of envelopes, cream-colored with gold trimming. My wedding invitations. My heart clenched so hard it felt like it might stop. The camera shifted, showing a hand opening the front door of my parents' house. Mailboxes in the background. Familiar walls. Familiar rug. And then, the envelopes were tossed on the kitchen counter. Another hand reached into the frame. Hand I knew. A hand I'd seen my entire life. But right as the camera turned enough to show a face. Right as the identity of the person came into view. Right before the truth could land like a tidal wave. Mom's hand shot out and slammed my phone shut. Hard. The sound echoed through the silent room. Every single person stared at her. She stood there frozen, her hand still on my phone, her eyes wide and shining with fear. "Mom," I whispered. My voice shook. "Why did you do that?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Dad stepped toward her slowly. "Caroline," he said again. "What is going on?" Tears filled her eyes. She looked at the stairs. She looked at Emily. She looked at me. Her whole body trembled. And then she did something that made the room fall into deeper silence than anything before. She sank into her chair. Hands over her face. Crying. Real crying. Not performance crying. Not dramatic crying. Broken crying. The kind of crying that comes from a secret so heavy it crushes your chest. But she still wouldn't speak. Not yet. She wasn't ready. But I could feel it. She knew something. She'd known for a long time. And whatever she knew, whatever she saw, whatever she hid, was connected to those invitations and the person in that video. But the truth wasn't ready to come out. Not yet. Not until the story had dragged all of us through the fire. Dad knelt in front of her. "Please," he whispered. "Tell me what you're hiding." But Mom only shook her head. "I can't," she sobbed. "I promised." Promised who? The question hung in the air like smoke. No one dared speak it. No one dared move. Except the front door suddenly creaked shut. Low. Like someone had just slipped inside, or outside. Dad shot to his feet. "Who is in this house?" he shouted. He ran to the door and pulled it open. But there was no one there. Nothing but cold November air. Mom's crying grew louder. Emily slid into her chair, her shoulders shaking. Mark stood over her, rubbing his forehead like he was solving a math problem too big for his brain. Jenna leaned close to me. "Olivia," she whispered. "That hand in the video. I think I know who it belonged to." I swallowed hard. "Who?" But before she could answer, a voice spoke from the staircase. A voice none of us expected. A voice that made every head in the room snap upward. "I think," the voice said slowly, "we should all sit down." The person stepped into view. And the entire room went dead silent. That was the next extreme moment. But before we go into what happened next, let me take you back for a breath. A soft moment, a less extreme moment, because life never gives us storm after storm without a small pause in between. Earlier that week, before Thanksgiving, I was at work at the community center. A small girl named Mia, maybe 8 years old, had been struggling with her reading. I sat with her at a tiny table decorated with crayons and stickers, helping her sound out each word. Halfway through the storybook, she looked up at me and asked, "Miss Olivia, why are you always so nice?" I smiled at her. "Because everyone deserves someone to be kind to them." She tilted her head. "But what if they're not kind back?" Pause. That question felt heavier than she knew. "Then," I told her softly, "you stay kind anyway. Your kindness isn't about them. It's about who you want to be." She nodded slowly, like she was saving the words inside her heart. I didn't know then that I would need to remember my own words later, that I would need to hold on to that promise, even when the truth hurt more than I expected. Because kindness doesn't stop storms, but it keeps you standing inside them. And now, back to the dining room. Back to the person standing halfway down the stairs. Back to the moment that made everyone stop breathing. The person stepped fully into the light. Their face calm. Their eyes unreadable. Dad whispered their name. Mom's crying turned into a quiet whimper. Emily covered her face again. And I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Because the person standing on the stairs was the last person I ever expected. And they said it again. "Everyone, sit down." The person standing halfway down the stairs was my younger cousin Tyler. Quiet, calm, always in the background. Never the type to raise his voice or draw attention. He was 24, lived with my parents while taking classes at community college, and barely spoke during family gatherings. But at that moment, he looked nothing like the shy, gentle boy I'd known my whole life. His face was pale but steady. His eyes were firm. And his voice, usually shaky, was strangely sure. "Everyone sit down," Tyler repeated as he walked down the last few steps. Chairs scraped against the floor. No one argued. No one questioned him. It was as if the whole room instinctively understood something. He knew something. Something big. Something we weren't ready for. Mom wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She wouldn't look at him. She kept her gaze fixed on the table, trembling with every breath. Dad swallowed hard. "Tyler," he said carefully, "what are you doing upstairs? Were you the one making the noise?" Tyler didn't answer. He walked to the corner of the room and pulled another chair to the table. Emily hugged herself tightly. Mark stared at Tyler like he was a stranger. Jenna stepped closer to me, her arm brushing mine for comfort. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. Tyler sat down slowly. And then he looked straight at me. Not angry. Not guilty. Not ashamed. Just steady. You need to finish the video, he said. Mom's head snapped up. No, she cried, voice cracking. Tyler, please don't. He closed his eyes for a second like her voice hurt him. But when he opened them again, he was even calmer. Aunt Caroline, he said gently. It's time. Dad turned sharply toward Mom. Time for what, Caroline? What have you two been hiding from this family? Mom covered her mouth again. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She shook her head over and over like a child refusing medicine. Tyler's voice softened. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Like what? I whispered. He looked at me with something like sadness. You weren't supposed to find out today, he said. Not like this. Not with everyone watching. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. Find out what? Yes. But Tyler didn't answer. Instead he said, play the video. My fingers shook as I reached for my phone. I unlocked it, scrolled to the video, and pressed play again. This time Mom didn't move to grab the phone. She just sat there, crying silently into her hands. The video continued. The camera turned. And there it was. A close-up of the person holding the stack of wedding invitations. A person standing in my parents' kitchen. A person in my parents' house. And the face. The face was. Mom made a choking sound. But then, the video glitched. It froze again. The audio cut out with a sharp buzz. The screen went black. My stomach twisted. Why does it keep doing that? I whispered. Tyler answered quietly. Because the video isn't finished yet. What does that mean? Dad asked urgently. Tyler looked down at his hands. It means, he said with a shaky breath, that there's more you haven't seen. Another silence fell over the room. Heavy, suffocating, thick with fear. But then, something unexpected happened. The doorbell rang. Everyone jumped. Gasped. Emily clutched Mark's arm. Dad stared at the door as if a monster had appeared behind it. The bell rang again. Ring it. Louder this time. Faster. More urgent. Dad pushed his chair back. No one answer it, he whispered. But the bell rang again. And again. And again. It wouldn't stop. It felt like whoever was outside wasn't ringing the bell. They were trying to break into the house through the sound alone. Jenna grabbed my arm. Liv, who is that? I didn't know. I didn't even have a guess. But something told me the person behind that door knew exactly what was happening in this house tonight. Dad finally stood up. I'm going to see who it is, he said firmly. No, Mom cried. She reached for him but missed. Robert, please, don't open the door. Dad ignored her. He walked toward the hallway slowly, each step heavier than the last. The bell stopped suddenly. Silence. Too much silence. Dad reached the door. Put his hand on the lock. Everyone held their breath. Then he pulled the door open. Gasp. A deep, sharp gasp that made my heart slam against my ribs. What are you doing here? Dad stuttered. My blood ran cold. Because Dad only talked like that when he was terrified. I stood up, unable to stop myself. I walked slowly toward him until I reached the hallway. I looked past his shoulder and saw someone standing on the front porch. Someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone who should not have been there. Someone who looked at me with eyes full of secrets. My breath caught in my throat. The person said my name softly. Olivia. Dad whispered. Oh my God. I felt my knees weaken. That shocking appearance, the next extreme event, brought every secret in the house crashing to the surface. But before we dive into that moment, let me bring you a breath of calm. A less extreme moment that happened earlier that same day. Something gentle hidden inside the chaos, because life is never all storms. Right before heading to my parents' house for Thanksgiving, I stopped at a small cafe near our home. As I waited for my drink, I noticed an elderly man struggling to count his coins for a cup of tea. People behind him sighed loudly, annoyed and impatient. Without thinking, I stepped forward, smiled, and paid for his tea. He looked up at me with soft, grateful eyes. "Thank you, dear," he said. "You just made my day." He told me something simple yet beautiful. Life has a funny way of showing us truth. Sometimes it hides, sometimes it waits, but it always comes out. I smiled back then, not knowing how deeply those words would echo in my mind later. Because today the truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was knocking on the door. Back to the porch. Back to the person standing in front of me. The last person I expected. The last person who should have known anything about the invitations. They took a step forward. My heart thundered. Emily gasped behind me. Mom whispered something I couldn't understand. Dad stepped aside, helpless. And the person said again, "Olivia, we need to talk." That night, after my brother stormed off and the house went quiet again, my phone lit up. I almost let it ring, but something in my chest said, "Pick it up." Her voice was low, almost shaking. "Please listen to me," she said. "Your brother left here angry. Very angry. And he's planning something. Something that will hurt you." My stomach tightened. What kind of something? She hesitated. I could hear her pacing. I could hear Dad asking in the background, "Is she picking?" Then Mom whispered, "He wants to tell the whole family that your wedding was fake." I blinked. "Fake?" "Yes," she said quickly. "He wants to claim that your husband is not real. That you paid people to act as guests. That you staged everything to embarrass him." I gasped, not in surprise, because my brother could be petty, but in disbelief that he would go that far. "And he wants to show Aunt Mary all the clips online as proof," she continued. "You know, once she spreads it, everyone will believe it." Covered my mouth. Daniel looked over immediately. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would he do this?" Mom exhaled shakily. "Because the video made him look bad. People are mocking him. He wants to turn the whole thing around. He wants you to be the clown." A long silence passed. Then Mom's voice softened. "Baby, be careful." I didn't know what to say. This was the woman who signed for my wedding invitation and hid it. The woman who let me sit alone on Thanksgiving pretending everything was normal. The woman who made jokes with my sister while I stared into my empty plate. And now she was warning me. "Why are you telling me this, Mom?" I asked quietly. Another silence. Longer. Then she said something I had not heard from her since I was a child. "Because even when I fail you, you are still my daughter." My chest tightened. Before I could respond, Dad took the phone from her. "You need to protect yourself," he said, firm but not unkind. "He's angry enough to make stupid choices. Your mother is right." I swallowed. "Does he hate me that much?" Dad sighed. "He doesn't hate you. He hates what the truth makes him look like." There it was. The truth. Always the truth. Always something they didn't want to face. After the call ended, Daniel pulled me close. "Whatever happens, you don't face it alone." I nodded. But my heart was already racing. Because I knew something. My brother was many things. Stubborn. Proud. Sharp-tongued. But he wasn't stupid. If he wanted to twist the story, he would do it well. And by morning, he did. Less extreme event. The next morning. At 7:12 a.m. my phone buzzed non-stop. Mary. Cousin Bella. Uncle George. Grandma Joe. Even my old neighbor, Mrs. Douglas. The messages came fast. "Why didn't you tell us your wedding wasn't real? Your brother said you staged it for attention. Oh honey, why would you fake a whole husband? We are praying for you." Praying. I sat up in bed, face burning hot. Daniel sat beside me. "I told you he'd try something," he said. "But this is insane." Cried. "How can they even believe something like this?" Daniel handed me his phone. "Look." He played a clip my brother posted. Long rant. Shaky voice. Fake sad expression. Perfect performance. He said things like, My sister didn't feel included, so she made a fake wedding. She married a stranger. Or maybe not at all. We're worried about her mental health. We love her and want her to get help. Help. I nearly threw the phone. He is the one who needs help, shouted. Daniel touched my hand gently. Calm down. You'll hurt yourself. No. Snap. He wants to destroy my life again. And everyone is just believing him, just like always. My voice cracked. I felt the old pain rising. Childhood pain. The your sister is the golden child. Pain. The be small so others can shine. Pain. I stood up and paced the room. I'm tired, I whispered. Of him. Daniel asked. Of all of it, I said. The lies. The favoritism. The pretending. The silence. I am tired. He moved closer. So what do you want to do? I looked at him. Then at his ring on my finger. Then at the framed photo from our wedding. Real wedding. Where we stood barefoot on the cliffside, laughing like kids, surrounded by every friend who truly loved us. What do I want to do? I repeated. I took a deep breath. I want to end this extreme event. The big confrontation. I didn't text. I didn't warn anyone. I didn't wait. I went straight to where I knew my brother would be. Mom and Dad's house. Daniel drove silently, gripping my hand the entire ride. When we reached the driveway, the front door swung open before I even knocked. My brother stood there. Chest puff. Is cold. Smirk already forming. Oh look, he said. The actress has arrived. I walked past him without blinking. Where's Mom? I demanded. In the living room, Dad said, stepping aside. Everyone else was there too. Aunt Mary, Grandma Joe, Cousin Bella. All sitting in a circle. All staring at me. Like I was on trial. My brother folded his arms. Well, he said loudly. Are you ready to tell the truth? Yes, I said calmly. His smirk grew. Good. Because everyone is waiting. I stepped forward. Looked at each face. Then I said clearly. The truth is. My wedding was 100% real. Murmurs. My brother rolled his eyes. Oh please. And the invitations, I continued, pulling out my phone, were delivered. Line 4. Confirmed. Press play. The recorded delivery confirmation. Mom's signature. Dad's signature. My sister's signature. The room went silent. My brother's face twitched. I turned slowly, eyes locked on him. And now I know who didn't want me there. Everyone stared at him. Mom covered her mouth. Dad stood frozen. Aunt Mary's eyes widened. Grandma Joe whispered, Lord have mercy. My brother stepped back like he'd been hit. What are you saying? He stuttered. I stepped closer. You tried to make me look crazy, I said. You tried to make my wedding look fake. You tried to make me look like the problem. His breath hitched. But you, I said, voice steady, signed for every one of those invitations. And hid them. The entire room turned to him. And then, something happened. Something no one expected. He lunged. Straight toward me. Hands clenched. Is wild. Daniel shouted my name. Mom screamed. Dad grabbed him. Chairs fell. The whole living room exploded into chaos. And then, everything stopped.